Okay, here we go. Prosper is brand new, like we said, from the new Adventures in the Forgotten Realms Commander decks.
Technically, as of recording this, still not legal.
I know. I saw that because we have a list going in Moxfield of all the cards, and all of the ones from this deck are all like, this card is not legal. It's like, right. I guess just because it's not released yet, right?
Yes, the pre-release is still we're pre-release weekend of AFR.
Oh, right.
And so these are technically only released as of the 23rd. So that's next Friday.
Wow, that's so far in advance that we have them all. Well, hey, thanks, Wizards. Thanks for letting us have them so early, I guess.
I'm into it. It gave me so much time to brew.
That's true, yeah.
It's been fun.
So let's take a look at this card. Mike, you got this. You got our commander up here. You want to read this one for everyone?
So Prosper Tome-Bound is a legendary creature, tiefling warlock for 2 black and a red, 1/4 death touch, but that's not the most important stuff on the bad boy himself. Mystic Arcanum. So in Adventures into the Forgotten Realms, they added these flavor words, it's like flavor text, but for spell names and stuff.
Yeah.
So this isn't a keyword ability. It's not like an ability or anything, but it's right before some ability. So Mystic Arcanum.
It's a D&D spell or ability that's just being represented in Magic. Yeah.
And I don't know D&D a lot, but I do know that the second one is an ability that warlocks or tieflings have.
Yeah, Pact Boon I think would be it's like warlocks all have a pact with their patron, and that's what's granting them exact. Or it could be a demon. It could be like a demigod. It could be an elder god, like Cthulhu type thing. It can be a lot of different things depending on what type of warlock you are. It could be Papa Shango. It could be to yourself. I think even now they have a thing. Yeah. But anyways, that's the story. I mean, I'm also just learning all of this because I've just started playing D&D. So, but yeah, that's what the pact is with warlocks. Anyways,
so they have the keyword ability. So 1/4 death touch, Mystic Arcanum. At the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. And Pact Boon, whenever you play a card from exile, create a treasure token. Huge.
That's very cool.
I love this. First of all, Impulse Draw gaining that text of until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. Mm-hmm. Massive. I think that
yes.
What was hurting Impulse Draw was that it was until end of turn, where you would have to spend the resources that you would then need to spend on the card you got.
Yeah.
And making it a little bit slow and not really true to red. This is a little bit more planned and a little bit more in advance. I love this.
It's still impulsive. It's just that it doesn't you don't have to have 20 mana to do it.
Yes, the impulsive nature of it is that it does feel like a fleeting thought because it's coming from your library, but it's pitched right into exile.
Yep.
And so you can say no thank you to that card or being this is out of I can't afford that, right? But the best part is that if you play a card, not cast. If you play a card from exile, not just your exile, not just cards you've exiled with Prosper, not cards that are exiled exclusively by you. Whenever you play a card, create a treasure token.
Whenever you play a card
Treasures
from
are everywhere.
exile, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. Play a card from exile.
Still must be from exile. Yes. But it doesn't have to be from you. It doesn't have to be from this card, like you said. It can be from anywhere. It can be an opponent's card from exile if you play that. So that's
which
sweet.
Opens it in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
I believe Gavin was on YouTube opening up all the commander decks recently on YouTube, and he went through this deck first and was like, this deck really wanted to showcase all the ways you can play stuff from exile. Cascade, Suspend. You've got stuff playing from exiling a card from a graveyard. Impulse Draw. You've got stuff like Conspiracy Theorist and a bunch of different ways that you can play from exile. Rebound is also one of them.
Sweet. Yeah.
Madness does exile the card to then allow you to play it.
Cool.
So truly a lot of really cool ways to get your value from exile. However, I will say it does feel bad to have Prosper out and to exile something with Rebound or Suspend or Madness because then you don't get the discount or the setup. You don't. So if you rebound is from your hand, madness you have to discard, and suspend you have to suspend from your hand as well.
Right.
So, and for like if you have a foretell spell, that's also another way to get something into exile and then play from exile. That also needs to be foretold from your hand.
Right.
For the discount.
That's interesting. So those types kind of have like, if you're running a lot of that impulse draw type stuff, they can actually kind of non-bow with what you're actually trying to do a little bit.
Right. Which is why this deck kind of strays away from playing all of those altogether.
Yeah. So we just kind of focused on most of the stuff. I mean, we do have some of that other stuff, but really mostly we're talking about that type of impulse draw. So as you know, obviously we're going to get some treasures in this deck. We're going to be exiling stuff. That's what's going to happen. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. That's just Prosper's ability. So setting the scene here, getting into the old vegetables. We got our first like impulse draw card that we've included is a great one. Commune with Lava. X red for an instant. Exile the top X cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards. I mean, this is great.
Fantastic.
This gives us everything we want, whether it's a quick one or something like that, or if you want to go nuts with maybe a bunch of your treasures late in the game and set up a really big next turn. That's kind of interesting.
Huge.
You can do a lot of stuff with that. Outpost Siege is one we see a lot. 3 and a red for an enchantment. As it enters, you choose cons or dragons. Cons is the ability we're looking for here. I think it's the beginning of your upkeep. Exile the top card of your library until end of turn. So that's end of this turn. You may play that card. You'll find that when it's free, like Outpost Siege, where it happens, just automatically happens. That's when it is like, okay, you only get this one turn to do it. When we have the cast, a lot of the times, especially with the more recent cards that are printed, it's like it lasts another whole other turn for you, which is nice. Dragons is probably not going to be relevant, although it does say whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, Outpost Siege deals 1 damage to any target. I can see that maybe being relevant if somehow all your treasures got turned into creatures somehow, but that's not what we're doing. So we're really leaning on
There might be a version of the deck that does that.
Maybe, yeah.
But I can't see. No. I can't see the deck that we're brewing with us slamming Outpost Siege down and going
ever.
I'm naming dragons.
Yeah, we're never doing
dragons.
Guess
what?
And then
I mean, unless I stole an Avenger of Zendikar with like 20 lands in play,
not gonna happen.
Maybe. Even then, it's 1 damage per target, and I have to find a way to get them killed. You have to find a way to
sacrifice them too. Never mind.
Exactly. That's not this deck. It's not this deck.
We also have Direfleet Daredevil. Direfleet Daredevil's 1 and a red for a human pirate with 2-1. It's a 2/1 with first strike, and it enters the battlefield. Exile target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard. You may cast that card this turn, and you may spend mana as already typed to cast it. If that card would be put into a graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So this one is like a little bit of, it's that same impulse type feel where you have to cast it by the end of turn. It gets exiled, but we're grabbing obviously something from a graveyard here. This is one that would work if we cast it from exile, because this is just an ETB ability. So we're going to get that as well. So there are these kind of, there's like impulses, the other type, and then there's this kind of middle of the road where it kind of does both things, which is really good.
I really like Direfleet Daredevil, and I like that they reprinted it in the precon because I think more people need to know about this card. It's a 2-mana way to give
incredible card.
An instant or sorcery card in an opponent's graveyard flashback for you.
Yeah.
And you can spend mana of any color to do it. And like early game, that means you're like probably snagging a ramp spell, if you've got like a couple treasures because you're playing Prosper, right? Like you got a couple treasures down, you want to snag a ramp spell, or you can grab something crazy. Like your opponent's finisher is in their graveyard for an extra 2 mana. That's your finisher now.
Right.
Like have fun, baby. It's yours. And guess what? Here's an extra treasure token for your troubles, Prosper says.
Always always works well with board wipes also if we get into a tough situation. Removal in general, obviously. So yeah, just a great card. I mean, obviously, It's
also a pirate.
I know, right? Which, that might come in handy at some point. We'll see. We'll see. What's the second kind of, we've got another focus here, Mike. We got some treasures in this deck.
Yes. Treasures are very important to this deck. In fact, one of the main ways of killing your opponents is going to be using your treasures and making a lot of them. So, like, Reckless Fireweaver procs anytime an artifact enters the battlefield under your control. It deals 1 damage to each opponent. If you've got like a crazy turn when you're just like casting stuff from Prosper over and over and over again, you are going to be swarmed in treasures, and that only helps you cast more things, and that'll lead to more treasures. And so you can have a really big turn and like really hit your opponents for a big amount of damage just based off of this one little 1/3 who's just hanging out. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Well, look, let's get into. You want to make a bunch of treasures? Well, look, Ruthless Knave. You've got some creatures. You'll be getting some creatures from your opponent's stuff. You'll find a way to make some creatures. You tap. You sacrifice a creature, pay 3. You get 2 treasure tokens. Those are going to be useful for you. Those are going to be fixing you. Those are going to be making some tokens. And as we kind of forecasted here, having more treasure tokens is a big deal in this deck. There are ways that end up actually adding more treasure tokens or more artifact tokens. Academy Manufactor was just added to the pool of commander cards and we thank you so much, Wizards. Thanks for Academy Manufactor out of Modern Horizons 2, because whenever you create a treasure token, you also get a clue and a food and incidental life gain and like just card draw when you need it, when you got all these treasures that you don't know what to do with them and you need to crack a clue. That's huge. I think that's like. And then there's also Zorn. I think that's how you pronounce it. XORN. If you create a treasure, if you would create one or more treasures, create an additional one as well.
Which works, which is crazy with something like Brass's Bounty.
Massive.
Right?
Well, I mean, it would only make 1 extra.
Oh, it only makes 1 more? Oh, it doesn't double it.
If you create 1, no.
Oh, it just makes 1 additional. But it is better. So this is the exact opposite of the best thing. The best thing you want is one that makes 1 at a time.
Right. So you would want something like this one got cut because it's gotten expensive, but Pitiless Plunderer is a card that
card is expensive. It's an uncommon too.
It's an uncommon from Rivals of Ixalan that is now, $11-12 Canadian. So it's crazy. But the point is, like, Academy Manufacturer will make a clue and a food for every treasure, and then you've got Zorn that's going to make. You're proccing off of Prosper. If you're ramping 2 for every spell you're casting on Prosper, that's pretty huge.
You know what? I'm going to stop you right there because it does sound like we're starting to get into the neat moves.
Working on a neat moves. We're just going to take a second to handle a little bit of business. And the main point is, thanks for watching. If you want to see more of our comedic takes and offbeat decks, consider subscribing to our channel and hitting that bell to make sure you don't miss anything. And if you're loving our stuff and want to support further, the best way is to head over to patreon.com/commandersbrew. Find out how our generous patrons keep our show growing and how you can get in on the brewing action too through our Discord. Or, if you'd rather, just hang out and play some games with like-minded Commander players. Now, let's get back to those neat moves.
It's hard not to.
Listen, I know. You get excited, right? But we gotta tell people when we're approaching the neat moves, which of course we are right now.
The whole deck is neat moves.
The whole deck is neat moves. You know what? That's when you know you get a good deck. So okay, so I'm gonna let you go nuts and read these first couple here because this is sound like where you were headed, anyways.
Oh, yes.
So just read them. Just make sure you read them in this order because that's how I have them set up in the tabs.
You got it. Look, it's in the precon. You know it. You love it. It's Marionette Master. Oh, you got an artifact deck that has a bunch of tokens that you're going to be sacrificing?
Oof.
Buddy, excuse me. What do you want? The perfect finisher? 6 mana? Not too expensive, and I'll tell you why. For 4 black, you get a 1/3, and it's like 1/3. That doesn't sound impressive. Hold on a second. Whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. You're like, 1/3? Hold on a second. That still sounds unimpressive. It also has Fabricate 3, which, when it enters the battlefield, you get to decide, do I want 3 colorless servo tokens, or do I want to put 3 +1/+1 counters on this thing? And I think most of the time in this deck, we're adding the counters because that puts Marionette Master at 4/7, which means every time you have an artifact hit the graveyard, that means you're dealing 4 damage. Well, you're making an opponent lose 4 life. for every treasure you sacrifice, for every food you sacrifice, for clues, for just any of your artifacts getting destroyed, for like sacrificing Idol of Oblivion to make a giant Eldrazi, for using your unstable obelisk, for sacrificing Wayfarer's Bauble. It's too much. It's too much.
It's insane. Once you get all the treasures out, it just gets wild. It is target opponent, so you got to make sure that it's because it's not one of those things. It's not like Zulaport Cutthroat where it's everyone. You do have to target, so there is that. But I mean, this card's crazy. We've been talking about this card for a long time.
Oh, buddy.
Similarly, we have the next one here, Nadir's Nightblade. This is a good one.
Oh, buddy. One of my favorites from Commander Legends.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know me well enough, let me just tell you, big Aristocrats player. Have been for a while. I love me a graveyard. I love sacking stuff to make things happen. Aristocrats is probably my favorite archetype after mill and discard. But I'll say Nadir's Nightblade is one that I feel fell under the radar because for 2 and a black, you get a 1/3 elf warrior that says whenever a token you control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. I mean, a token I control. Wait, it doesn't say creature token? Okay, hold on a second. What are treasures if not just more tokens that are going to leave the battlefield? Boom, you got yourself a Zulaport Cutthroat for your treasures. Oh, buddy.
Yeah, now you got it, right?
I
this
love
card's,
this card.
This card's wild because, I think obviously everyone thought of tokens as creatures right away, but this might as well just say treasures because that's what it works the best with because we don't need a sack outlet for those, obviously. So really, really just boosts the synergy with treasures like crazy here. This is an incredible card.
Exactly. What about the next one? What's that one that's this little guy right here?
I love Mayhem Devil. This works, of course, very well with our treasure theme as well. 1 black-red for the 3/3 Devil. Whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, Mayhem Devil deals 1 damage to any target. So, I mean,
you mean it happens when someone else sacrifices a treasure too?
That's right. And with the prevalence of treasures in Commander these days, with your Dockside Extortionist players, Mayhem Devil is an excellent include, right? Obviously, just from our own strategy, but also because, we're going to come across people who are like, I want to sacrifice 3 treasures to cast the spell, but if you do that, you kill my commander. Something like that's going to happen. So
this
is a very good
Mayhem
card.
Devil deals 1 damage to any target.
Any target. That's right.
Any target. Isn't that nuts? Isn't this deck nuts?
Someone gets low enough life totals, and I've seen this where someone gets low enough life totals, but then they get a late Dockside or Brass's Bounty or something that's putting a ton of treasures on the table. But they're down to 5 life or something. It's like, well, good luck using your treasures.
Yeah, right.
You got to get rid of this Mayhem Devil first because you can't do anything. You're going to kill yourself. So it can really handcuff some players. Yeah.
Sorry, buddy. Looks like you're going to need to use your lands for something.
Infinite combos with the treasures, all this kind of stuff. It's wild.
Everything.
I love it.
You don't get a Dockside loop when Mayhem Devil's out. I'll tell you what.
There's another one another one kind of like this, right? Here?
Right. And I think this one is going to see... I'll tell you guys, grab them while they're inexpensive because I think they just reprinted this guy. But Disciple of the Vault is a 1 mana 1/1. It's for 1 black mana. You get a human cleric that says whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from play, you may have target opponent lose 1 life. Treasures are everywhere. Mm-hmm. There's going to be people like me playing this deck, and I'm going to be using treasures. And if you have this out, I'm going to have to think twice about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Disciple of the Vault is amazing for you who is in control of it because you just get to, of course, just like the Nadir's Nightblade and the Mayhem Devil and Marionette Master, you get to throw damage around, but it could also be used a little defensively with your opponents using stuff like clue tokens or, Lonus Cryptozoologist is a very popular commander right now, and sacking all those clue tokens means that, hey, if you're going to dig into my library, you're also going to take 8 damage from this guy. Or you're going to lose 8 life, rather. If you feel so inclined to take from my stuff, you know what I mean?
And especially Mayhem Devil, Disciple here, they're great because they're not this kind of card that looks really scary to the entire table a lot of the times, right? So you've got that Lonus Cryptozoologist player, and then you've got someone playing some Bant deck, and someone else over here is playing mono green. It's they don't care about that, so they're going to be sure. What, you're crippling this other deck while we get to prosper? And that's the other thing too, is that it doesn't actually shut off that deck. Of course, you just got to be careful with what you're doing. You got to be paying. You're paying a little bit of life, so it's like it's a soft, like, I don't know what to say. Like it's not a lock at all, but it's like it's like a soft restriction on the decks that's going to otherwise go nuts, right?
It's like, hey, maybe you want to pay attention to this. I don't know about you,
you're gonna lose one life for clue or treasure, or whatever.
Let me throw this idea out at you a little bit. You are targeting. First of all, Nadir's Nightblade is going to hit the whole table, so that one's out. But Marionette Master, Mayhem Devil, Disciple of the Vault, you get to pick who gets to lose that life or where that damage goes.
That's true. It doesn't have to be the person doing it, right?
So, Magic the Gathering's Commander format is a game of politics, and as someone running a deck whose commander has made a pact with a patron, a demon patron.
Yeah.
I'm picking demon.
Yeah.
Why don't we make a deal too? Come on,
right?
I'll broker a deal. It's like a pyramid scheme. It goes all the way down up to the top. Hey, you want to sacrifice all those clue tokens to dig into someone's library, Lonus player? Well, guess what? With all those 8 clue tokens going away, they're also going to lose 8 life if you target them. Huh? Right. How about that? Or, hey, maybe if you use all your treasures this turn, I won't target you with Marionette Master. Instead, we could take out this guy who's had solitary confinement out for the whole game or whatever and can't be dealt damage or attacked. Huh?
I love it. And that's true. Down. This is lose life. It does get around that kind of type of stuff. So what do we next here? We've got, I'll read these two. So we've got Girper Orrery, which is a cool card in this deck. 4 mana for the artifact that says each player may play an additional land on each of his or her turns. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, if that player has no cards in hand, that player draws 3 cards. Okay, interesting. Works well with a little card called Uba Mask. 4 mana for, this is a rare artifact from Kamigawa. If a player would draw a card, that player removes that card from the game face up instead. Each player may play cards he or she removed from the game with Uba Mask this turn.
Right. So it's like exiles the top card of their library face up, and they may play cards exiled with Uba Mask.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So everyone just gets this like, they only get their own spells. Okay, that's cool. So it isn't like the card that makes the pool of everyone gets.
It's not knowledge pool, or it's not the new share the spoils. It's not that new card either.
Right on. So yeah, so this is very cool because obviously, I think, this is going to affect you in the best possible way and not really mess with anyone else's plan, really, right? Like they're still going to get to cast spells and stuff.
Mm-hmm. They can, but it does mean that everything you play off of it will get you treasure.
So think about that with Girper Orrery, right? So each player may play an additional land. So if we get some lands up there, we can play that additional stuff. And then at the beginning of each player's upkeep, if that player has no cards in their hand, the player draws 3 cards. Well, this is just going to speed up everything because if we start actually playing those cards from our hand, Uba Mask, we don't draw any more of them, so we will have an empty hand. So we'll be exiling even more cards and getting even more of the bonus from Prosper, which is great. So like everyone else is still playing the same game, but we are getting this crazy benefit. And actually, I just love it. This is great.
And it's also why you want to protect your commander, because like this does work fine without Prosper, but you are exiling a little, like with Prosper, you exile at your end step, and therefore if you exile a land, you at least know you're going to hit that land drop. Mm-hmm. So if you exile something off of Uba Mask afterwards and it's another land, you get to play both those lands and you're up 2 treasures, and you can use whatever you've got going on to keep playing. But if you have no cards in hand, Orrery, first of all, I was running this list by one of my friends, and he kept saying, "Why are you so intent on keeping Orrery?" And I was like, just read the card. Picture yourself in a game where I'm your opponent, and I've basically got these 2 things out, and I might look scary, but you also get to play more lands, and then at some point, you'll also get 3 cards a turn that you have to play that turn, but you still get those 2 extra cards. I mean, it is pretty huge. And he's like, you're right, I probably wouldn't want to remove that.
Cards like that do a thing where they level the playing field, and what that does, it as far as like land drops and things go, because obviously green gets the biggest boost from ramping and things like that.
Massive.
So giving them an extra land drop can be really good for them too. But the thing is that they've included cards in their deck that do that. So like now you've given one of those cards to everyone at the table. So ideally we can at least step up a little bit to what green's doing in this Rakdos deck, right? And obviously with this actual combination, when you have Uba Mask as well, then we're really cooking. But there's one card that you mentioned that really goes well with these two.
This card is I'm gonna go ahead and shout out Jedit from EDH Rec and Commander's Herald, who I've consulted on our, we've been co-building Prosperless since the thing was spoiled, and he pointed this card out to me and I was like, this is evil. This is fantastic. Oblivion Sower. Talk about leveling a playing field and then just decimating it for yourself. Oblivion Sower is an Eldrazi for 6 mana, a 5/8 that says when you cast Oblivion Sower, target opponent exiles the top 4 cards of their library, and then you may put any number of land cards that player owns from exile onto the battlefield under your control. Feels like a word is missing there. Oh, you mean they don't come into play tapped?
Wow.
And there's a bunch of exile happening in this game already, and you're probably going to exile a ton of stuff from your opponent's libraries because of Uba Mask and stuff like that, or maybe you're running around with a tally and you flip a bunch of lands off of some guy's thing. Well, guess what? I'm going to cast Oblivion Sower, and those lands that I couldn't have before, give me now.
You get them
I'll take them.
But they don't, importantly, you're not playing them, so you don't get the treasures from Prosper.
That's correct.
But I mean, whatever, right? You get you're gonna get a bunch of lands.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't get 7 treasures off the 7 lands I put into play this turn.
I would be disappointed about that. I'm like, oh man, I don't get the treasures.
And lands are full of utility. Like, you don't know what people are running. You might hit like a buried ruin that might like allow you to like bring back a crazy artifact that you have in your yard that got blown up, or like Cursed Mirror, or Inspiring Statuary, like anything from the list that like you're like, oh, I got to get that back. There's a lot of stuff happening, and I really, really like Oblivion Sower. So shout out to Jevin. That was sick.
It's a huge include. I think it's great. I love this. That's a very neat move. I think no matter what stage you're getting this card at.
It's neat.
So Mike, the way we did this was Mike sent me a list of the deck that he's been working on, and I was like, this looks so great. I was like I said, we'll cut some budget from this and we'll just use it. Why not, right? So inevitably, when you budgetify a deck, you end up including something that cares about tribal cards. It's just the way it works. It's so much easier. Yeah. Now this tribal. This card's not bad, right? So we got included in the like budget version, we've got Breaches, Brazen Plunderer. 3 to red for legendary Goblin Pirate. It's a 3/3 with Menace. And it says whenever one or more pirates you control deal damage to your opponents, exile the top card of each of those opponents' libraries. You may play those cards this turn, and you may spend manas over any color to cast those spells. This is one of the partner commanders from Commander Legends, but it works great in the 99 of this deck, especially if you've included a few pirates, which I think without even trying, we do have a couple. Like
we've got a handful.
And I think like if I was building from the ground up and I wanted to include Breaches, I might include 2 or 3 more. But I still think Breaches himself that's the thing with all the pirates we have in this deck, they all still do their thing on their own. Absolutely. You don't need Breaches isn't unusable if you don't have other pirates. Exactly. He just gets better because the 3/3 menace that basically draws you a card when it hits, that's not bad. We'll take it. And that's exactly what happened. So, Mike, speak on these other two of the I think 6 or 7 pirates of the deck.
Yeah, we've got a handful. We've already talked about Direfleet Daredevil earlier, who we said he's a pirate, right? We got a little pirate. Captivating Crew is a human pirate for 4. That's a 4/3. And so it hits hard, which means that, if you're going to be attacking somebody, they might not want to block it, or you can then also remove a potential blocker with its ability. For 3 and a red, gain control of target creature an opponent controls until end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste until end of turn, and you may activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. Now, sometimes you might not have cards you want to cast, or you might not have cards that you can cast. Maybe Ubamask and Prosper exiled a few too many lands in a row, but you have all this treasure hanging around, and you want to sacrifice them, and you've got breaches down, so why not spend 4 of those treasures to grab one of your opponent's blockers and go smack them in the face with their own guy and your captivating crew and your breaches, and see if maybe they've got something on top of their library, or spread the love and get something from a couple opponents' libraries.
Yeah.
That's a solid... I've always really liked Captivating Crew, and I feel like it doesn't get the respect I believe it deserves, and I think it's because people see Activate only as a sorcery, and I'm like... Okay, yes, but threaten effects are very powerful, so I really like that one.
I love this card too. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I believe the next one is I did in reverse order. That's my bad. This one is kind of a finisher. This one's nuts.
Can be, yeah.
Fathom Fleet Swordjack for 4 mana, 3 in a red, 4/3 Orc Pirate. Whenever it attacks, it deals damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking equal to the number of artifacts you control.
Wow.
and it's not even over. And it has Encore for 5 in a red.
Right?
Encore.
You exile it. You exile the card from your graveyard, and for each opponent
so
you create a token.
So it's technically on theme. Like, it's technically
sort
on
of,
theme, right?
because you're not actually casting it, though. That's the thing.
Right. But hey, you exiled it. So look, okay, Prosper still's like half a thumbs up. You're fine.
Yeah.
But you make a copy for each opponent. You create a token copy. You swing at them. Each opponent takes damage equal to the amount of artifacts you control. And they still have a 4/3 raging in at them. And then at the end of the turn, let's say you've got Nadir's Nightblade out. Yep. Well, these tokens disappear. How about they take an extra 1 damage and you gain a life each?
There's so much synergy going on, right? So you've got this. You've got like you mentioned, like the Nadir's Nightblade works with it. Obviously, we're talking about this because of breaches. But Ruthless Knave, which is also a pirate, is a sack outlet for creatures, which you could do to the Encore creatures if you want.
Exactly.
Also makes treasures, cares about treasures. It all. I mean, unsurprisingly, the pirates all synergize together, and it works really well.
Well, Ruthless Knave means that if you pay 4 to take something away with Captivating Crew and attack with it, and you can still pay another 3 to sacrifice it to Ruthless Knave and get 2 treasures out of the deal anyway.
Right.
So instead of casting you 7 mana, it's like 7 mana on layaway, but then for 5, it's basically for 5 mana, you got to take something away and sacrifice it. And isn't that a card already? That's like Grab the Reins or something?
Yeah. It's like, you get treasures when you do it. Yeah, I think it is. Cool.
It's wild. I
love it. I know I love it. It's like and I love it when these little synergies all do come together. But the fact that if you just draw a Fathom Fleet Swordjack, all you need is some treasures, which is just what this deck does. So this guy's just good on his own as well. All right, what are these next two looking like here? We've got Galvanic Relay. Which is another one that we included in the budget version. It's 2 in a red for a sorcery that's exile the top card of your library. During your next turn, you may play that card, and that's not that great. But then it has Storm. So, okay. And then we also have Birgi, God of Storytelling, in this deck. The 2 in a red for the 3/3 Legendary God. Whenever you cast a spell, add red. Until end of turn, you don't lose mana as steps and phases end. That's nice for the treasures. And the boasting thing is like never come up ever with Birgi in the history of the world.
Never once.
So yeah, this is like a weird little storm package. Like, it wants to be stormy. I know there's like, is it Mana Geyser is already in this deck, right? The red
Mana
card
Geyser
that like gives you a bunch of mana. And so there's a bunch of stuff. Obviously, we're looking to cast a couple spells, get some Birgi mana, maybe then use Galvanic Relay maybe from that Birgi mana to then storm and get basically draw, impulse draw like 3 or 4 cards, hopefully. I mean, we're not storming off because this doesn't actually do anything other than draw some cards, but it can be a good one, when we have a bit of a board going.
And I'll say, in playtesting this version of the deck, I was able to get up to 6 Storm.
Okay.
With Galvanic Relay, and
That's pretty good.
it worked out nicely. Exiled a couple of really cool things that like obviously couldn't cast all of them the next turn, but it made for like a really interesting setup for the next turn. And I can only imagine being at the table where like my opponents will be like, well, those 6 cards, what's coming at us? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so what's, I'd be really interested to see what this deck is like at a table and how people react to it. Because they get so much information, which is a bit of a downside with the exile stuff.
Yeah,
but
interesting.
you're not hiding anything either. You're kind of just going for all of it all the time.
Yeah,
you know?
that's true.
I think something to note with Bergie is that it's flip side. So Bergie's flip side is Harnfell Hornet Bounty. For 4 and a red, you get a legendary artifact that says discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those this turn.
Yeah.
So, I mean, basically draw 2 in this deck, and then you still get the semi-Bergie element that prospers out. So if you cast something from exile, you then get a treasure. So it's kind of like getting the red mana from Bergie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this really works either way you want to, like, whatever stage you're at, like, whatever's going on. This is a very versatile card for this deck. I always forget about the back of Bergie, but this is very good. Like, this...
I'm telling you, and I'll say it out loud for everybody to hear, I think Bergie is going to be a very important card in Commander, at least in maybe not the near future, but I'm telling you, I'm someone who owns at like 12 copies at this point because every red deck I have runs it, and then also I can't picture a time where I won't be like, you know what? Bergie's perfect for this, and I'm going to put Bergie in here.
Very good card. We've definitely been including it here. And that's
so good.
That's a good sign. It feels like if you see a lot of cards show up in Commander's Brood decks, that means because it's like it's cheap and it's good, and then eventually you'll be like, "Hey, you guys don't use that card anymore." It's like, yeah, it's because it became $10. Like,
right? Yeah. And not to mention it is an MDFC, so like that's not going to help its things because like MDFC is very difficult to reprint.
It's true.
Very difficult to reprint. So you heard it here first, folks. Get your Bergies. They're good. They're good.
I guess let's just mention this last card here, which is just, it's not really a neat move. It's just a good card. That highlights one of the other ways we can exile stuff. You go ahead.
Wild Magic Sorcerers, 3 in a red for a 4/3 Orc Shaman that says the first spell you cast from exile each turn has Cascade. Interesting card. I like it.
Yeah.
I think... Ooh, God. I think that it's like a really cool... First of all, it's a shaman, which makes me think like, oh, shaman have gotten a little bit of love recently with Harmonic Prodigy, and I think there's some stuff on the horizon with shaman that could be cool. I'm just like, ooh, fingers crossed for shaman. But the first spell you cast from exile each turn has Cascade. So there is a build of this deck that leans heavily on instants, or flash speed stuff that you can then cast from exile and then cascade into something maybe devastating for the entire table of opponents of yours. But I think that just getting a bonus off of something like Rousing Refrain, which you've suspended 3 turns ago, and then you then cast from exile, and all of a sudden you're cascading for 4, and you're getting mana equal to the amount of cards in an opponent's hand. I think that's huge.
Considering
I think it's a sleeper in this deck.
Yeah, considering this is like how red draws cards, this is kind of just good in a lot of red decks, right? Like if obviously, if we're pairing with actual card draw, maybe it's not as good. Like if you're not leaning on that impulse stuff, but like if you got a mono red deck or you red black like we have here, red white, like I know that a lot of those decks do rely on this type of impulse draw. So like this card just gets really good then. You're just getting free spells with this. This is amazing.
Another card that I have been talking about a lot recently with pals is like Valakut Exploration is a 3-mana enchantment for 2 and a red that says landfall. Whenever a land enters a battlefield under your control, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. So it doesn't go away, except at the end of at the beginning of your end step. If there are cards exiled with Valakut Exploration, put them into its owner's graveyard, and then Valakut Exploration deals that much damage to each opponent. So they do come out of exile, but the idea is that if you're playing mono red and you've got the Wild Magic Sorcerer out, and you just play a land for turn, and it's something you can cast, Well, guess what, buddy? You're casting that card and cascading. It's just all money on the table if you're not taking advantage
something
of
that's
this.
0 mana.
Well, no, not because you're playing a land to exile the top of your library.
Oh,
so
I
like,
see what
let's
you mean.
say,
I was gonna say, yeah.
yeah,
okay.
no. If I play a land and I exile something like a Brass's Bounty, right? Like I'm gonna have a big turn for one.
Oh, that's good. First of all, that's gonna be a huge turn. Yeah.
Huge turn. So I play Brass's Bounty for 7, but before the craziness even starts, Cascade for 7. Okay, flip to you hit a card you could cast. Boom. That's also cast from exile. You're getting 2 cast from exile triggers off of Prosper.
True.
You're
Yeah.
getting 2 extra treasures, and then the Brass's Bounty hits. And like I don't know what you just cast. It's 7 mana. It could be anything. You could be hitting like your Marionette Master. This could be the end of the game. So
Incredible.
Wild Magic Sorcerer is nuts. I think it's one that I'm gonna buy a couple copies of and see where else I could sneak it in because it's very cool. It's very cool.
Agreed. I think there's definitely we all have decks. I think where this card's just going to be good.
It had some chaos to the game. It's like ooh, fun.
So that's the main look of the deck right there, right? A lot of this, a lot of casting stuff from exiles, a lot of treasures. I mean, I think we got some different combos happening. I love when we're not leaning heavily just on one thing. We got some variance going on here. I love this deck. I think it's a lot of fun. And I believe that since we've kind of run through what the deck wants to do, it's time for the budget report. Okay, so we the version you gave me was, I believe, 1,000 something in the 1,000 range.
It was up there.
It was up there. Depending on where you go, it was between like 900 to like 1,000 something. We got it down pretty good here. We got it down to TCG mid 135.
Which is impressive.
Which is decent. And the low, this has actually surprised me. The low is 97. And I looked through it, and it's because a lot of the cards, there is no like beat up crappy version of it. So they're all just like the same. So the low was always like 5 cents less than the other card. Like our Commander is one of our most expensive cards, and it like the low version on that was like it's like $7.99 or $7.60, you know?
Yeah.
But
it hasn't even come out yet, so hopefully there aren't beat up versions of it.
Right? It's like, but like they're anticipating there will be, of course. So we do we don't run any super expensive cards in here. But we do run a couple, getting in that $5-6 range, one of them being Underworld Breach, which doesn't work like you don't exile it. Like Underworld Breach is the 1 in a red. This is our preview card for Theros. This is pretty sick.
Right.
It's the enchantment that each non-land card in your graveyard has escape. The escape cost is equal to the card's mana cost plus exile 3 other cards. And at the beginning of the end step, you sacrifice Underworld Breach. So it just gives us some more like options from our graveyard. It's just generally a very good card, obviously.
It's an excellent recursive tool for something that, like, say you have enough stuff in your graveyard to make you feel like you can just cast stuff from your graveyard to set yourself back up to a position where you can loop stuff with Prosper and it really can take you back into a game, and that's kind of what its purpose is here because, like it or not, this deck is kind of fragile. Somebody hits you with a blind obedience, all your treasures come into play tapped.
Right.
So it, as much as I really love this deck, I do think like it's a bit of a glass cannon, and Underworld Breach is here to make sure that, like, hold on a second, let's make this fair for me again. You know what I mean?
I wonder how this is going to play out with us exiling so many of our cards. That's the only thing
it's because you're exiling and then playing them.
We are playing them,
when
exactly.
They go to your yard.
Right. But if we kept exiling stuff that we're not pleased with, I wonder how much. Like, our graveyard's got to take a bit of a hit from that, right? Like, because we're not drawing those cards, right?
It's surprisingly less than you think, because as much as you're exiling stuff, you end up playing most of what you exile, or you end up, say, stuff like Valakut Exploration, where you are playing the land and then it gets exiled and it gets thrown into your graveyard at the end of at the beginning of your end step, or like Conspiracy Theorist doesn't exile it for sure. Like, you're allowed to choose whether or not to leave it in or not. So like a lot of your stuff will hit the yard, but for sure it's not like a regular deck. Like, you are playing with the exile zone, so
I think you're still going to get good value off of this.
For sure.
It's $6, so it's not like it's super expensive.
Right.
But it is one of the more expensive cards in the deck outside of our commander, which like I said, is I think around $8. We also talked about Bergie already, but she's up around $6 now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's these are two cards that like I think I would keep Bergie over Underworld Breach, but again, if you're looking to get this down, you're gonna have to cut a couple cards because we didn't have any like big, really super high cost cards in this deck.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, as always, there are a couple like really expensive cards that are going to really stand out and really be really nuts with this deck. First one's a bit of a mild one that I see people playing more often now. I didn't realize it got up to $10, but Curse of Opulence.
It's kind of crazy.
It's wild. It's a single red for the aura curse. Whenever enchanted players attacked, create a colorless artifact token named Gold. So it's not a treasure, and it has that's the kind that you just sacrifice it, and it's gone. And it
without tapping.
You don't have to tap it. And each opponent attacking that player does the same. So we all know how these work. Like the opponent gets it as well as the person who gave it, basically the person who cast it. Mike, you and I were talking.
It's gotten really expensive. It's gotten really expensive.
$10 is crazy for this card. I mean, single mana though, right? Single one, like 1 red mana. It's
turn
great.
one, this could change the outcome of a game, but it has had the adverse effect before.
Yeah.
So it depends on the
I've
game.
seen it a lot where it just disincentivizes people from attacking that person. So like if you're thinking of putting this on the players in the lead, it's like that can work out sometimes if we all know we have to kill that person, but then there's sometimes where you like put it on someone and then they're like, well, I'm just not going to attack that person. I'm not going to give you the mana because I don't need it, right? So you got to look out. Sometimes you said play it on yourself, and we said that when this card first dropped. Like
Curse of Opulence and Cunning Rhetoric. Like Cunning Rhetoric is also in the deck. It's the new one from Commander 2021, the Strixhaven stuff. That when an opponent attacks you, you get a card from the top of their library and cast it anytime. And that and Curse of Opulence. So like Curse of Opulence, you put it on yourself. You're basically like saying, hey, come at me. My commander has Death Touch. And if you give me treasure, you're only going to fuel more of this Reckless Fireweaver stuff, more of this Marionette Master stuff. Like, you are not going to get what you want if you come at me, but I'm going to get exactly what I need.
That's true. And that's a nice defensive move because this deck looks like it's going to need it.
Yeah, it's a real judo move, like using your own momentum against you.
This next one's pretty obvious. I mean, don't even need to
Dockside
say too much about it. Dockside, obviously, very good.
Make a lot of treasures, sack a lot of treasures, game plan. A little, I'll say it, a little boring.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Generally good card. We see it everywhere. If you bought these commander decks, or if you bought this commander deck, good on you. You got a Dockside.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, it's pretty expensive. Goldspan Dragon. Oh, that's not what it is. Goldspan Dragon's really great in this deck, obviously.
Ooh, Goldspan Dragon's fantastic in this deck, but still hasn't gone down from... It's like its pre-release price was way up, and now it's still like 20-something bucks, and I just don't want to pay that for a card.
It's so good.
Like, it's very so good.
It just doubles up your. Good. It's the Flying Haste 4/4 for 5 that when it attacks or becomes target of spell, you make a treasure, and then treasures tap for 2 now, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a bunch of other good stuff. I mean, you got here Jessica's Will, Sensei's Divining Top. We included any of the 0 cost. Artifacts obviously are just generally good.
Because I have in my original lesson, like Jeweled Lotus, like to get Prosper out turn 1 is crazy, and then to like exile a Jeweled Lotus would mean you cast the Jeweled Lotus for 0. That's your insurance plan for getting him out after, but you also get a treasure. You know what I mean? Or Sensei's Divining Top can like rearrange something so that you can exile what you need. And Jessica's Will is a crazy ritual that gets you the highest, that gets you mana equal to the highest amount of cards in an opponent's hand and exiles 3 cards from your library. So
that one works especially. I mean, that's obviously just like a generally good red card, but it even has added bonus in this deck for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, if you're not working with a budget, I'd say Jessica's Will is the first card I would consider putting in.
It's crazy how good that card has become in Commander and how ubiquitous it is.
I was lucky. I opened the foil one in the Commander Legends booster, and I was like, I already know this is gonna be the spice.
It's an incredible card. It's so good. It's so good. All right. Well, that's it though. That's the deck.
That's the deck.
Those are our neat moves. That's the budget report. That's all the stuff we didn't use, but you can. Remember to check out Lost Cards, because that is coming up as well. That'll be out, if you're watching this like day of, it's coming out in 2 days, coming out on the Thursday. But we're going to talk about all the various other ways we could have taken this commander and taken this deck. But yeah, Mike, thanks for being here. Thanks for filling in for Sean. This is a very fun deck. This is a like I would 100% play this deck.
I'm so excited to take this out in the wild, man. Like this is the first deck in a while that I'm like, this commander speaks to me, and I've been looking at it every night. Like normally what happens is I'll like throw together a list of 140 cards and be like, this is too much. I can't do it. But this one I've been chipping away at, and I feel like I'm getting there, and I feel really good about it. And I love this deck, and I appreciate being on. All love to Papa Shango. All love to the Commander's Brew fam and Battle the Brew heads who still ask me if I've ever been to Uvu Javer, and who from time to time will write me and be like, "Hey, I know this is crazy, but I just got it. Are you the Mike from Battle the Brews?" And I'll be like, I don't know what's so crazy about it, but yeah, that's me. So yeah, sometimes I'll be looking at my inbox for Commander's Herald.
Amazing.
And it'll be that kind of email.
Well, that's great. Man. Well, yeah, make sure to check out Mike's stuff on Commander's Herald, because it's great. You write the Am I the Bolus? Exactly.
It's like a Dear Abby. Am I the I don't know if I can say the word on here, but am I the mean person in this situation?
Yeah, there you go.
So you can email me. I keep forgetting. This is so stupid. I keep forgetting that my name for the email is Mark Carrozza.
Just confusing, truly, at this point.
I know. I thought I was just going to write under a pseudonym, but I just didn't have it in me to keep my mouth shut about it being me. So Mark Carrozza is at gmail.com for Commander's Herald. Or if you go to Commander's Herald, the email is in every article.
There you go. That's the easy way to get it.
That's the easy way. But yeah, check me out. Mike Carrozza, MikeCarrozza. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. I have a comedy album out. I do a bunch of podcasts about The Bachelor and sad music. I've got a Patreon. I do a bunch of stuff. I love you, and if you want to play Magic, send me a mess. This is what I want to do all the time.
He likes to do it. He likes to play. Guess what? All right. Well, thanks so much for being here, buddy. It was really a pleasure, and it was a lot of fun talking about this deck with you. And like I said, we'll be back for Lost Cards, but we'll see you later. Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you love what we're doing, consider supporting the show by going to patreon.com/commandersbrew.
And if you want to get any of the cards from our deck list, go to our TCG Player affiliate link below.
That helps us out too, and for a free way to help us out, consider sharing the show with some friends. Like and subscribe, add a comment or two.
See you later.
Bye.